This is the Happy Rant Sports podcast, in which Ted Cluck and Barnabas Piper rant about old sports, new sports, sports books, sports movies, and anything else related to sports that they feel like. Enjoy.
Hey, welcome to the Happy Rant Sports podcast. I am Ted Cluck, joined as always in studio by my good friend and partner in sports radio, Barnabas Piper. And Pipe, it's been a hot minute since we've done a sports podcast, man, and lots of things have gone down in the world of sports. A great NBA offseason. We've got the NFL season about to start. Dude, check this out. I'm sitting here in my office, man, which has a lot of glass and windows. There's a lizard crawling on the window, like right in my studio. This is crazy.
I've seen a ton of lizards around here recently. It feels like it's that time of year. I don't know. I haven't noticed them previously, but they're all over the place now. So for listeners who live in the northern part of this country, a lizard is a small reptilian creature that looks kind of like a snake with legs.
Dude, they're cool, man. They're not quite scary. They're just kind of cool looking. And I feel like in the hot, sweaty South, like nature is just about to take over at any minute, you know? Like if I go a week and a half without mowing my lawn, it's just going to engulf.
Have you ever read any books about like people exploring the Amazon and things like that? And they're basically like, it's truly man versus nature, and nature wins. And this is the kind of place that's kind of how I feel in the South. I'm like, somehow we carved out cities here, but barely. And if we were gone for 8 minutes, they would take back over. Nature would.
And what's interesting, and I don't know if you felt this in Minneapolis, but I felt that in the North too, except for the 7 months of winter, where I was just like, why did man ever think it was a good idea to settle up here? Like, this is insane. Shoveling snow and like...
I felt it less in Minnesota because there are so many Scandinavians that are there. It's just sort of like, Vikings have been doing this with no shirts on for 2,000
That's
years.
True.
So this isn't even a thing.
Dude, they're such hale and hearty people. I think all the cool Scandinavians settled in Minnesota, and then like all the rest of the complaining people just ended up in Michigan, where
you ended up with the Dutch, where it's like it gets chilly in winter, you know, there's like wooden skates on canals and stuff like that, but it's not like
exactly.
It's not like hail hardy negative 40 degrees kind of things.
Yeah, it's not like awesome Viking weather. But Piper, we digress because we have a pretty brilliant NBA offseason to discuss, and I want to do this in a very specific way this morning. So I want to discuss the NBA offseason in light of Quentin Tarantino's roster of movies. So I'm going to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood tonight. This is opening weekend for that movie. I'm very excited about it. I very rarely go out in public for opening weekends of movies, but I'm actually going with some students. Some students invited me to see it. So it's got me thinking about Tarantino and all things Tarantino. And it occurred to me that a lot of these NBA teams, given their moves in the offseason, kind of represent certain Tarantino pictures or ideas or aesthetics. And I want to run this theory by you, and then I want to lean on your NBA wisdom to talk us through this and see where we're going to be once the NBA season starts. So does that sound okay?
Yeah, I'm excited about this because, listeners, I don't have any idea where Ted's going with this in terms of which team is which movie. And so this is I'm going to be pulling commentary out of the air as we go, which is my favorite thing to do.
That's your thing, man. And equating things to movies is my thing. So I think together we'll make a great show. But these are in no particular order. So we'll just walk through them. Okay, so the first one, Utah Jazz, Reservoir Dogs. Ensemble cast and underratedly great. Not pretty, but they may ultimately get the job done. So we're talking about Mike Conley, Rudy Gobert. I low-key think the Jazz might be the best team in the West, and that Reservoir Dogs might low-key be the best Tarantino movie. So talk about that, Piper. Am I in the wheelhouse or am I off base?
I think you're in the wheelhouse on that one for sure.
Okay.
It's I'm just thinking through Reservoir Dogs. It's been a few years since I've seen that one. Yeah, really deep cast, but almost no standout like.
No headliner. Yeah, no headlining superstar.
You know, every guy has his moment.
Yep.
And then like last year, this would not have been a good pick because last year the Jazz were not as deep and interesting. But with the trade for Mike Conley and signing Bogdanovich, all of a sudden they now run 4 or 5 guys deep, all of whom are kind of multi-talented. They got Donovan Mitchell, they got Rudy Gobert.
Absolutely.
Getting rid of Favors was a great move because he just sort of clogged up that thing for him.
Dude,
I think it works.
Yeah, like there's no filler in Reservoir Dogs. You know, there's no weak scene because there's really no weak member of the cast. Like you enjoy all the scenes, and I think you're going to enjoy all the scenes with the Utah Jazz. Like watching these guys play together, like real grown-ups, real pros.
Right.
I dig it, man.
And you and I both have a deep love for Mike Connolly and his game too. So
absolutely.
I think the other reason this one works is because when I think about Tarantino's movies, there's so much unevenness. You know, like they're way up and down. But Reservoir Dogs isn't really. It just sort of holds its pace throughout, and like you said, there aren't any weak moments in it. And I think that would be if the Jazz win, like if they say they go to the finals out of the West, which it's a long shot, but it'll be because they're deep enough to weather the storms. Whereas every other team, if one star goes down, they might not be able to pull it off.
Dude, I totally agree. And also per Reservoir Dogs, this was like before Tarantino really started like messing around with chronology and getting a little too creative for his own good. And it's like, don't overthink it. You know, just put good, like grown up professional basketball players on the floor and let them do what they do. And you got a good big man. I mean, this team is almost crafted in like a 90s motif, which also dovetails with Reservoir Dogs and Tarantino. And that was kind of the ultimate sort of cool guy movie in the 90s, and this team almost reminds me of a 90s team in that they have a great point guard, a great big man. They're going to be physical when they need to be. It's going to be a really interesting team. All right, Pipe.
And one more comparison: rabid fan base.
Rabid fan base, absolutely.
So Pulp Fiction, which I'm sure you're going to get to, and I'm fascinated by where you go with that one. But Reservoir Dogs, the people who love it, and Jazz fans are insane. There's a small number of them, but they're insane in a positive fandom way.
I kind of love the Jazz. I've got a Jazz jersey. Somebody got me a Gordon Hayward Jazz jersey a few years ago, and I'm excited for it, even though Gordon's not there. But we're going to get to Gordon in this next category.
All right.
So our next one, Piper, is Hateful Eight, and I actually have two teams for this one. Let's start with the Toronto Raptors first. Cold, snowy, and boring now. Hateful Eight was a cold movie. If you've seen it, it does nothing but snow and deep freezing, that whole movie. And I thought it was unbelievably boring, which is what the Toronto Raptors are going to be, minus Kawhi Leonard. So Toronto as Hateful Eight, cold, snowy, and boring. That's my first one. I want to give you a minute to respond to that until I lay my second one on you.
I think that's pretty fair. I think the other comparison that works is that Hateful Eight did have, like, there were moments where, because again, massive ensemble cast, there were moments that were real exciting. And, Pascal Siakam's going to have his highlights every week where he puts a spin move on somebody.
For sure.
He's going to average like 23 and 9 this year or something like that. And, Kyle Lowry will have some big games as an old guy, kind of like, I don't know, Samuel Jackson in Hateful Eight or something like that. So exactly. There's some apt comparisons there. I think that one works too.
Dude, yeah, you're right. And you watch Hateful Eight for the individual performances. Like, to me, I knew about a half hour in that I wasn't going to like the movie. But I was also like, I'm going to ride with this thing. I'm going to ride it out because I respect a lot of these actors and I just want to see them work. That's why you're going to watch Toronto on League Pass next year. You're going to catch a little Pascal Siakam, and it's going to be a good thing.
And I think that's why Tarantino movies work for NBA comparisons, because even if it's not a good movie, there's always at least one or two performances that you're like, well, that was fun to watch. Which is like, that's why you go to NBA games, even if your team stinks. You're like, I mean, I'm a Timberwolves fan. They're not going to be good this year, but Karl Anthony Towns is going to be fun. So
super fun,
he's
man.
He's
super
sort of
fun.
he's the peak performance in a bad movie.
Absolutely. Okay, this is my honorable mention for Hateful Eight. Boston. The Celtics, aging white star, but is no good. I think the Hateful Eight had that. They had Jeff Bridges, who I respect and actually love. Like, Jeff Bridges is kind of like man crush territory for me, as is Gordon Hayward. But I'm coming to terms with the fact that, in NBA terms at least, Gordon is now aging. And
how old is he? Like 29?
He's 29, but it's been a hard 29, man.
Well, yeah, when you turn your leg 90 degrees the wrong direction, things tend to age faster.
Exactly. But that's Boston, right? Like, they got this old overpaid white star that's no good, and they're gonna pay for it, I think, this year. So
see,
that's where I'm at with
I disagree with this take. This is
all right, man. Lay it on me.
Because first of all, I think I think Hayward will bounce back very well this year.
Okay.
Because
I hope so, dude. As a Gordon Hayward apologist, I hope so.
Because he's not so old that that he's like his body's breaking down. If you remember when Paul George broke his leg, it took him about a season and a half to get back to being great. And so then he had one really good year, and then this last year he was almost MVP level. I don't know that Hayward's that good, but I think he can get back to all-star level because he's a full year plus removed from the injury. And then the other thing is, losing Kyrie will make everybody on that team better because Hayward and Kemba are both good guys as far as we know, who are both good playmakers. So Tatum and Jaylen Brown can play better. Marcus Smart is his wrecking ball of a self. Their biggest loss was not Kyrie, it was Al Horford because Horford's a stud. But I think they will be better this year, or at least more fun to watch. And
it might be addition by subtraction. Yeah, they might be more likable without Kyrie. In fact, they will be for sure.
And I think they'll play a more fun style of basketball because they have guys who will move the ball. They have better shooters. I mean, Kyrie was a good shooter, but he was also like a dribble 19 times and then shoot the ball guy. And so I'm not sure this one works quite as well.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying there, man. And actually, as a Gordon fan, I hope you're right. Let's go to the next one, Piper. LA Lakers, Pulp Fiction. Lots of stars, but overrated for what it is. I'm not a Pulp Fiction guy.
If you had not used the word overrated, that's the first thing I was going to throw out there on both accounts.
Totally overrated, man. This movie is overrated. I've watched it several times. Like the first time was in college with the beret-wearing douche down the hall who it needed to swing his intellect around and show you everything he knew about movies. I didn't love it then, and I don't love it now as an adult. And I don't love the Lakers. I think at the end of the day, when you look at the lineup of Tarantino movies, Pulp Fiction is, for me, it's middle of the pack. And I think the Lakers are going to be middle of the pack. AD means title or bust, but I don't think it's going to deliver. Piper, your take.
Yeah, the only tricky thing about these comparisons is that obviously basketball teams have some variance and the movies are what they are. Like, we know what the movie is. True. It's a finished product. So that's true. I could see the Lakers being a top 2 seed, top 3 seed if AD is MVP level. The thing is, neither AD or LeBron are going to show up for 40% of the games, either because of injury or load management or whatever. That's kind of like Pulp Fiction, where 40% of the movie was like, this is dumb. This whole thing is dumb. Nothing's happening. The stars aren't starring. The stars aren't starring. Nobody's really in the movie for the whole movie. Right.
If you love Bruce Willis, you're frustrated because he's only out there 40% of the time. And it's going to be the same experience with the Lakers, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and you just sort of have these erratic performances, which, it's by design. It's supposed to be a weird movie, but that's the Lakers. They still have Rondo. They still have, I think they signed Boogie Cousins, which in theory is fun. Yeah. But he's now broken down and not good anymore as far as we can tell. Maybe he'll bounce back this year.
I think Boogie got less fun, and that's not an indictment of him as a person. It happens with certain athletes where when the Warriors signed him, you're like, oh yeah, this is fun. Throw Boogie into that locker room and that mix. Let's see what happens. But yeah, I feel not the same way about Lakers era Boogie. Okay, one more honorable mention again for Pulp Fiction, Piper, Brooklyn, and I say this because Pulp Fiction, even though I don't like it, it resurrected some careers. And I think Brooklyn needs to resurrect the career of Kevin Durant, post-injury Kevin Durant, for it to really work out. Talk about Brooklyn in light of Pulp Fiction.
I mean, Brooklyn's basically in a purgatory year because they signed Kyrie and Durant, but Durant's out this whole year, probably. Yeah. I mean, and if he comes back, he's going to be, it's basically going to be a knock the rust off kind of thing. So it's basically this year, they're a worse version of last year's Celtics because it's Kyrie and young dudes. And we all know he's a bad leader of young dudes. And so things could get toxic fast. Yeah. I think Kyrie and Durant could work really well together, but we won't get to see that for another season. And so honestly, the best thing they could do is hope that Kyrie misses half the season with sprained ankles and they get another high draft pick or something like that.
Dude, the best thing we can hope for is the way that Tarantino plays with chronology in Pulp Fiction is just that they could jump ahead a year and like forget that this year ever happened.
Yeah,
because
just put the end at the beginning.
Dude, like really the only scenarios are bad for this year because Kyrie is going to split the locker room because he always does. He's going to ruin the like off the court dynamic, and that's all that this year is going to accomplish. I think you're right. I think best case scenario is like a kind of severe but recoverable injury to Kyrie, which gets them another high draft pick and keeps Kyrie kind of off the floor and out of the limelight.
Like a year of back spasms or something that's like it's the kind of thing he can't play through, but then he goes through some therapy in the offseason, builds his core strength, and then comes back as a new man with Durant back, hoping Durant comes back as at least 80 or 90% of himself. The Achilles is a rough one to come back from, but I think they're
turn him into late career Larry Bird, like laying on the floor with a heating pad on his back.
Here's the thing about Durant is like he can have Dirk Nowitzki's career. Where
you're right, dude.
Even as he so if he loses 50% of his athleticism, he's not going to lose 50% of his scoring because he still has the silkiest jumper. He still knows how to play angles. He can still fade away. He was already a better defender than Dirk ever was. So I mean he can play until he's 39 if he wants to.
Absolutely. No, I agree, man. I totally agree. All right, Piper, let's get back into this thing. Next one, L.A. Clippers. Once upon a time in Hollywood. Lots of stars. Expectations are sky high, and it's Los Angeles. And my question on this one is, do we trust Paul George? My assertion is Paul George is not a movie star. Leo and Brad are movie stars, but let's say Brad decided not to do the movie, and they filled his spot with somebody who's amazing but isn't quite a movie star. I think that's the Paul George dynamic here. I'm not sold on it, but I want to be. So in the same way that I'm going into the movie tonight with huge expectations, I think I have the same outlook for the Clippers. Talk to me. What do you think about this team?
This team is really interesting to me because very similar feelings about both for me in that I have really high hopes, but there's a part of me that goes, I don't think they're going to live up to that. Yeah. So on the movie side, it's because Tarantino's uneven. He delivers some bangers and then he just some busts. And both of these guys are capable of putting on great performances in bad movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and then the other thing is on the basketball side, George has this shoulder injury that sort of nothing has been disclosed about it, but he might miss the first quarter of the season or something like that. Yeah. And Kawhi will never play 75 games in a season ever. So even if he's healthy, they're just going to hold him down so that he's strong for the playoffs. So there's just going to be lengthy stretches of like, I don't know. I don't even know who else is on their team. I know they have some decent depth with young guys, but I forget who all is on there. It's just going to be like, it's going to be, I don't know, Patrick Beverly and Lou Williams and stuff like that. And that's, that's fine. Yeah. Those are sort of the that guys of the NBA. It's like, oh, that guy's in this. That's fun.
Like the Michael Madsdens of the NBA. I've seen that guy in like 12 things.
But if those guys are both on, I think this is the best team in the West.
Yeah.
And I don't think Paul George is a number one NBA superstar player. I think he's plenty good enough to be the number 2 on a title team. But and Kawhi is very clearly good enough to be the number 1 on a title team because he's done it twice now. So
exactly.
Once with Tim Duncan, who was supposed to be their best player, and then Kawhi was actually the best player at that point in Tim's career. So I think it would be kind of like in this movie if everybody kind of expects Leo to be the star because he's sort of the current A-lister, but Brad he's like, no, I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm just going to own this one, which is kind of what I think would happen if this movie is great. I don't think Leo will carry the movie. I think he'll be the character actor, and Brad will own the film.
Dude, I agree. I think Brad has to own the film. In that, like, we're going to need a big Paul George step up for the Clippers to truly own the West. But I agree, like on paper. So if you compare Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, just the hype for it, right, and the cast. If you compare it to Reservoir Dogs and you tell people I've got a free movie ticket, which movie are you going to see? You're going to go see the one with Brad and Leo in it. But Reservoir Dogs might be the better movie. So time will tell. I'll know after tonight, and we'll know after the NBA season whether the Utah Jazz or the Clippers are the better team. Okay, next one, Pipe. Next one, and I feel like we might have some pushback on this because I think we disagree about this team.
All right.
Golden State Warriors. Kill Bill for me. A creative franchise that maybe everybody is sick of. Kill Bill was in that kind of post Pulp Fiction. Maybe everybody's sick of Tarantino kind of stage in his career. There were people that liked those. There were maybe too many of them.
Didn't they only
I feel
do
that
two?
way about the Warriors. Yeah, they only did two, but you know, maybe people felt like it might not be a movie that deserves two. You know, it may have been better as a one-off.
All right, let me further this comparison to see how you feel about this. So let's take the premise that you've created. They have announced a Kill Bill 3, which might be better than the first two, or at least more fun, because we haven't seen it. I mean, when did the last one come out? Like 12 years ago?
Yeah, a long time ago.
So if the third one comes out 12 years later, that's a little bit like this is the post Kevin Durant minus Klay Thompson resurgence for Steph Curry. So it's sort of the like, oh right, this is fun.
Yeah,
like,
that's right, dude.
And so I disagree. Like you might be more negative about Kill Bill than I am. I recall really enjoying those movies. I haven't seen them since they came out, so I don't have a lot of detailed recollection about them. But I recall watching them and thinking this is really creatively done, really fun, flashy, cool way of doing things, cool story.
Dude, I would like to get back to Golden State being fun. You know what I mean? And I think it's so funny, like human relationship dynamics wise, just the insertion of Durant and kind of Boogie made it less fun. But yeah, you subtract some of those pieces. You kind of give Steph is the Uma Thurman, right? He's the one on the poster. He's back on the poster. He's back being Uma Thurman in Kill Bill, and maybe you let him be the movie star, and maybe it gets more fun. You know, I think you're actually onto something there. I really like that.
See, Golden State is going to be one of my favorite teams to watch this year, assuming Steph is healthy, because I think the signing of D'Angelo Russell is intriguing because with Klay out especially, he gives them a good second scorer. He's not Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson's the second best shooter in the NBA and probably a top 5 shooter in NBA history. But D'Angelo Russell, all-star level guard, young player, good talent. They can trade him if they need to, whatever. But I think Curry is going to... I don't know that he's going to be able to sustain it like he did for his NBA or his MVP seasons, but he's going to have those games where he hits like 11 threes and a half and just goes off, and it's going to be fun to watch. Draymond is going to be insane because he doesn't know how to turn it off. Like, he doesn't pace himself. Yeah. He's not sort of like, well, let's just get to the playoffs. And this year, they can't pace themselves. They're not good enough in a strong conference. I think they're going to be really fun.
Yeah, dude. I think you're right, man. I like that. All right, next one, Piper. Dallas Mavericks. Inglourious Bastards. Non-Americans, Luka Doncic and Porzingis steal all the scenes, as in Inglourious Bastards. And I think Cuban is Aldo the Apache. I love Inglourious Bastards. To me, it's far and away my favorite Tarantino, with Django Unchained being a close second. But Inglourious Bastards is a great movie. It was kind of the coming out party for who's the foreign guy who spoke like 3 languages in the movie and stole all the scenes. Christoph Waltz.
Yes.
Yeah, Christoph Waltz. And I don't know. I think that's going to be Dallas. People are kind of sleeping on Dallas. I don't hear a lot of buzz about them. But they could low key rise up and be a great team. They're going to be another fun league pass team. Like Luka, Porzingis. You're going to not want to miss what happens in Dallas, even if they don't win the title. Talk about that one, Piper.
So I'm conflicted on this one because I love the comparisons you made and how you made them. However, I think in terms of just sheer quality rankings, Inglourious Basterds ranks higher amongst Tarantino movies than Dallas will amongst NBA teams.
I totally agree. That's a great point.
So, but in terms of like fun,
yeah,
the likability, the total swagger of Doncic, and just sort of his, like, he and Christoph Waltz have something very much in common in that
they're hams. They're big
absolutely
stars.
They're and just charismatic killers. Now I realize comparing a 19-year-old NBA star to a Nazi is not nice. I'm only talking about the sort of ethos, not the morality.
Yeah, the performance aspect for sure.
But yeah, just absolutely, Walt stole the scenes. He was hilarious and also terrifying. Yeah, and never shied away from the moment. Like, Doncic is one of the most fun guys to watch in the NBA. Period. Just his absolute. Like, he doesn't back down from anybody. He thinks he's as good as anybody. And he's still young and chubby. Like, imagine if he ever figures out
dude, it's unbelievable.
Maybe, like, eating cheeseburgers at 4 a.m. is not good for you, and you should work out some.
And he has no conscience about anything either. Like, he can miss 9 threes in a row, and he's going to keep pulling.
And he's got like that great combination of, he's still young and fairly athletic. He's not a freak.
Yeah.
But he's got like the James Harden, like, herky jerky thing going on. He's got the Kevin Durant leaners and step backs. He's fun.
Dude, he's almost like
he's
almost like a pastiche of everything you wish you could be if you were a little kid growing up watching the NBA right now, which is probably what he was a decade ago in Europe, watching all these American NBA players kind of stealing this from this guy, stealing that from that guy. I mean, he really is like the product of some top shelf athleticism combined with like what it looks like to pull a lot of great aspects of a lot of great games from different guys.
And it's fun to watch that mixed with sort of the way that Europeans are coached, which is a much more ball movement, player movement, less isolation. Although the NBA is less isolation than it used to be, I think.
Yeah.
But so you just sort of have these different things ingrained into somebody. And then you drop in there just like 4 shots of like assassination ego, like just fearless, no conscience. I'm better than everyone, which is so fun.
Absolutely. Well, dude, and in the same way that like every minute of Inglourious Basterds to me was like just a super fun watch, right? There's no boring scenes. There's going to be no boring night with the Mavs as long as they stay healthy. Like, you're going to want to tune in for what it looks like to see Luka and Porzingis on the floor at the same time.
I want Porzingis to be healthy so bad.
Dude, me too. The NBA is so much better when he's healthy. He's such a good superstar.
Well, because he's very similar to Doncic in terms of that, just sort of like, he's got swagger, he's got attitude, he's not afraid of anybody. He's got a unique game because he's sort of gazelle-like, except he's 7'2", and sweet jumper. He's so fun to watch if he could ever get on the court.
And I don't want to take this to too much of a political place, but it's fun when white guys have swagger. How long has it been? It's been a while, right? Who's the last great white guy with like world-class swagger? And like the one I'm going to say is too easy.
Who are you going to say?
Larry Bird, ultimate swagger white guy.
I was going to go one in between. Steve Nash was close.
Dude, you're right. That's a good one, actually.
He was more
That's
like
a really good
he was more like sneering swagger, not like chest thumping swagger.
Yeah.
Jason Williams, who was not a great player, but made up for it with swagger. Yes.
You're right, man. He was fun.
I'm trying to think if there were any others.
I'm trying to think too. There's got to be some we're forgetting. I feel like the current lineup of NBA white guys, they're either like awkwardly European or they're Kyle Korver and they just kind of know who they are.
Even the guys who have been at their, like Gordon Hayward, Kevin Love have both been, top 20 NBA players at their peak, and neither of them were swagger guys.
Totally.
Although, Kevin Love earlier in his career kind of was. He had a little bit more. Once he went to play with LeBron, I think he just sort of got some of that
beat
knocked
all
out
the
of him.
swagger and joy out of him. Which is another reason why the LA Lakers are Pulp Fiction. Like, I don't know. I think LeBron, we're seeing some some cracks in the whole LeBron's a good guy thing. Like,
well, I mean, I think LeBron is. He's one of a kind. I think he's. First of all, he's like top 3 or 4 ever in minutes played at this point, which means at 35,
man, that's crazy.
35 is not young for any NBA player. 34, 35 with that many minutes on you is like old. And even though he's an athletic super freak, he's going to break down if he hasn't already started to. But then the personality thing is so intriguing because he now has a reputation that teammates don't love him. Some do, but some absolutely hate him.
Yeah.
But then he gets
not unlike Pulp Fiction.
But then his public persona is very likable and engaged. Like all the videos of him coaching or cheering for his son and those kinds of things. And there's just no negative stories about him. There's no controversy. There's no mistreating like waitresses. There's no nothing, which I think is a really good sign because I'm pretty sure that stuff would be found out. So I think he probably is a good guy. I think he's just sort of an a-hole competitor.
Yeah, that's true, man.
With an ego.
I mean, to be fair, like that descriptor probably fits the guys that we love most in the NBA. I mean, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird. That would apply to both of those guys.
Except Jordan wasn't even a good guy in real life.
Exactly. We got a few more, Piper. I want to move to the next one. New Orleans Pelicans, Django Unchained. This is more of a reflection of the geography of the place than the team itself. But I said my note was hot, sweaty, and gross, but potentially brilliant. That's kind of how you feel when you're in New Orleans.
It's kind of New Orleans in a nutshell.
The city is disgusting and gross, and it's like 112, and I'm just swampy beyond all recognition. But I might have a brilliant time here, and I think that's kind of the deal with New Orleans. Like they went all in on Zion, obviously, and they're looking to the future. They've still got some good pieces there. That could be a brilliant team. I love Django Unchained. It's probably my second favorite Tarantino movie. And I want to love the Pelicans, and I feel like it could happen.
See, the only reason I disagree with this one is because I don't think the Pelicans have earned the title of Django Unchained. Because that movie I think it's my favorite Tarantino movie.
Yeah, that movie is astonishing.
Every performance in it, again, listing people we've already talked about with great love and affection. You've got Leo, you've got Waltz, you've got Jamie Foxx who crushes. You got Samuel Jackson. I mean, there's so many unbelievable performances in that. I think Kerry Washington was in it. And the Pelicans have the potential for that, but not a single guy on that team other than Drew Holiday has sort of proven himself to be a good NBA player.
Absolutely.
So I feel like we need to come up with an honorable mention.
We do, man. Who's an
NBA team who's closer to actually being this.
Yeah, you're right, man. You're right.
I would have been inclined to, if I was just going to pull off the top of my head, I would have given the Golden State Warriors Django Unchained. First of all, because I never hated them the way a lot of people did. But because I look at this and I go, Leo's character is Draymond Green. Just the crazy, completely unlikable villain who makes the movie thrilling. He's dangerous. He's insane. Jamie Foxx is Steph, just the assassin.
Yeah. Man, I don't want to like that comparison, but I think you're right.
And then it starts to break down a little bit around there because Christoph Waltz's character is so good, and I'm not sure where things start to go from there. But in terms of just sort of likability, star power, I think that's a good one. Yeah, I don't know who else might be a good fit for that movie on the they're already good enough scale.
Yeah, man, I don't know because.
I mean, Houston. We haven't mentioned Houston, but I just dislike everybody on Houston. Okay,
I've got one for Houston.
Okay, good. I can't wait to hear this because it's got to be the Tarantino movie where every character is unlikable.
It's not. I went a different direction, but I think you'll get it. Yeah, man. Like we haven't talked about Philly yet, but Philly doesn't have a Django. Like there's not a super alpha killer on that team, which is why they're stuck in where they are.
Could be real close. Although I think he's more the Christoph Waltz guy at this point, where when he's good, he's really good, but he's just a little quiet for parts of the movie.
Yeah, I mean he's not in shape too, so you're not going to get a you're not going to get a full 2 hours of Embiid, like to keep the movie analogy going. You're
you
not going to
get that during an NBA game.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, I mean, it's tough, man. I think Golden State is the one here for Django. And if we're going best NBA team and drawing a straight line to potentially best Tarantino movie, I think it's hard to go wrong with Django Unchained and the Golden State Warriors. Okay, so we teased this. This is my next one, Piper. Houston Rockets, Jackie Brown. People forget that it happened, but it might be awesome. I feel like people have forgotten about the Rockets, but they do have Russ and they do have Harden still. So it may rise up and end up being awesome. People that love Jackie Brown really love it. I do think it's a really good movie. But it's kind of forgotten when people talk about Tarantino pictures. Mm-hmm. You have a different take on the Rockets, and I'd be interested in like which, to me, like the Houston Rockets might be the Hateful Eight, like an ensemble cast full of like dirtbags where everybody's the bad guy and there's nobody to root for. So maybe that's the Tarantino comp for you. Am I close?
Well, the difference is I think I would probably put Houston down as the favorites in the West right now.
Yeah.
Because I probably would have picked them as the favorites if they had kept Chris Paul, and I think they upgraded by getting Russ, assuming it works. Like, that's volatile. But I just dislike everybody on the team. So I don't dislike them as players. I think Harden is insane. And I think Russ is probably a better second wheel than first, in terms of leading a team. I just don't like anybody on them. It's purely subjective and like ego, attitude, playing style, all of it. They drive me nuts.
Yeah.
But
dude, it sounds like Hateful
really
Eight
good.
For you.
What's that?
They are really good. Yeah, it might be Hateful Eight, a lot of unlikable characters in
that, like you said, that movie was like
the movie was bad.
I wanted to like it, and it never delivered anything.
Exactly.
I feel like Hateful Eight is, probably, like, again, going back to the Lakers, like, man, they could be good. Look at that cast, but also boring.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Pipe, I got one more, and I feel like this is my least strong one, but it's the least strong Tarantino picture, so it kind of makes sense. New York Knicks, Grindhouse. There are big names involved, but they're forgotten for a reason. I feel like Grindhouse is kind of the forgotten Tarantino moment, and it's maybe with good reason, even though there were some names involved, including his. I feel like this is the New York Knicks spending lots of money on a mediocre product. That's kind of the Grindhouse experience for Tarantino. Talk me through this,
man. I don't even know how to say anything about the Knicks at this point. Like, they've literally failed at everything they've ever tried. They can't get stars. They can't keep stars. They can't get young players. They can't develop young players. They can't draft well. If your best player is R.J. Barrett, you just suck.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's,
dude, and it's so like deliciously ironic that they're in this huge media market where they could, they could conceivably get any player, right? And they could conceivably build this great team in a city where everybody wants to be. But yeah, they're basically they're like the Charlotte Bobcats right now, in that they have really nobody on their team that you want to watch, and then they have one rookie. The
best feature of the New York Knicks is Madison Square Garden.
Absolutely.
And it's a dump. It's just a classic dump. It's like it's Fenway before it was refurbished, and even Fenway's nicer now because they got new ownership who was like, oh, maybe we should do something with this national treasure. And
exactly.
There's, as long as James effing Dolan is in charge of that team, they're gonna be horrendous.
Yeah.
And or they trip and fall into the next LeBron by accident.
Yeah.
Kind of like Cleveland did.
That's right, man.
Where Cleveland went from, I don't know, like a Zydrunas Ilgauskas led team to, all of a sudden we have the best player since Michael Jordan.
Oh, wait a minute. We have LeBron James. And I'm going to throw a hot take out, and I'll be interested to hear your view on this. I don't think Zion is going to be that player. I think he's almost a man without a position in today's NBA. And I'm curious what you think about that, or maybe we've discussed this on the program before. It's been so long, but
I think Zion's floor is Sean Kemp.
Okay,
and
I'll take that floor.
Which, if that's what you get out of a number 1 overall pick, that is not disappointing. Because Sean Kemp, prior to lockout and 700 Twinkies, was really really good. Like he was. Listeners, if you haven't watched, just go YouTube Sean Kemp highlights and watch him just dunk people into oblivion. It's like watching Thanos snap his fingers. People just vaporize. It's insane.
That's a pleasure, man.
Oh, it's
Old
so
Sean
much
Kemp
fun.
Is good.
And so I think that's Zion at his worst. I think he probably ends up more Charles Barkley-ish.
Yeah.
Where he's...
I'll take that.
Again, Hall of Famer. That's hard to complain about. If at his best, he's Charles Barkley with better passing ability. Because, so I'm going to get nerdy for a second, but I was listening to some podcasts and they were breaking down how Duke used him. They didn't make him the roll man in a pick and roll, but like 4 times all season. 4 occasions, not 4 games. He did more in his first summer league game, in which he played about 18 minutes or something like that. He did more rolling than he did in his entire Duke season.
That's incredible.
So there's already just putting him in a position to succeed. And then the other thing is, a couple different games at Duke, he was a functional point guard and had like a 7-to-2 assist to turnover ratio. So there is some playmaking ability there. So I think he could be really, really good. But because he doesn't have a set position, I think it could take him a little while to figure it out in terms of how to dominate a game. Yeah,
no, I think you're right, man. I'm with you on that. Piper, we are drawing near to the end of our program here, but I want to get back to a thing that we used to do on Happy Rant Sports and talk about some sports books. I actually have a new author that I've found, and I've read a couple of his books and have loved them. Do you have anything like right on the tip of the tongue, sports book wise, that you want to promo this week?
You go first. I read one recently, but it slipped my mind, so I'm going back to figure out which one it is. You lead off with that author.
Dude, yeah, for me. So the author is Dirk Hayhurst, who was like a very journeyman minor league pitcher and then had a cup of coffee in the big leagues. Wrote 2 incredible books about his experiences. One is The Bullpen Gospels, which is kind of about AA, AAA baseball, his journey through the minor leagues and, kind of the financial struggles and the personal struggles. There's a lot of family stuff. I mean, to me, this is like MFA program, like memoir kind of catnip, in the sense that it weaves in family, it weaves in the culture. Great baseball writing. Obviously, he really loves the sport, writes really well about it. And I actually just finished his sequel to that one called Out of My League, which is about him finally getting to live his dream up in the big leagues. I think he's a believer, for what it's worth. Those books came out on secular labels, but there's a lot in there that would suggest that he knows the Lord, which is kind of fun too. I actually I did a thing that I never do, Pipe, and we can maybe talk about this on the real pod. I actually wrote a fan letter to Dirk Hayhurst.
Really?
Yeah, I went to his website and there was like a contact me thing. So I just reached out to him in like a paragraph and I was like, hey, really enjoyed your books. Thanks for writing those, which is a thing I almost never do. But I've done it 2 or 3 times this summer. I think there's something about summer and having a little bit more time. It makes me want to let people know that I appreciate them. But Dirk Hayhurst, if you're listening, I loved your books. Keep writing.
And thanks for listening. We really appreciate and if you don't listen, just keep downloading. That's good too.
Your patronage of Happy Rant Sports. Yeah.
Well, I remembered which one it was, and then I thought of another book that I wanted to highlight as well. So the one that I read most recently, finished it a couple weeks ago. It was the biography of Tiger Woods by Jeff Benedict.
Ooh. Heard it was great. I haven't read it.
It's phenomenal as a book. Just in terms of how well written it is, his story, kind of how he puts it together. Benedict did a great job with it. It's sort of devastatingly depressing as a story, though. Just Tiger Woods' story is so empty.
Dark. Dark, empty, depressing.
From the get-go, his relationship with his dad, his dad's relationship with his mom, and how, just so much idolatry of golf, so much trying to live vicariously through others, such a kind of an unhealthy obsession with competitiveness in golf, and the way, his almost dual personality, alternating between being like the most kind of the biggest, baddest man in on the golf course, and then being like an almost juvenile human when it comes to social relationships and not knowing how to
like a really dorky, awkward dude. I've read
both dorky and awkward, as well as just like crassly inappropriate and offensive, and just these, you just look at it and you're like, this is not a whole man. And,
There's some real deficiencies there.
And, so as much as I love that Tiger Woods came back and started winning again, even if it's sparingly, because it's so fun for golf.
Yeah.
But he has a really sad story. So it was hard to love the book because of that, but I loved the book because of how compelling it was, and because Benedict did a great job with it. And it's just called Tiger Woods. The other one that I wanted to highlight, and I think I've actually talked about it on an early sports app. This is kind of in memoriam. Jim Bouton passed away in the last 2-3 weeks. He wrote a book called Ball 4. It was kind of the first baseball kind of memoir tell-all. Most baseball books before that had been baseball journalists and things like that were very much more sports writery, narrative driven. And his was like from the perspective of a bullpen pitcher. So kind of the inspiration for the Dirk Hayhursts of the world. And he was, people hated it when it came out. Fans loved it. Baseball people hated it because it just didn't cast them in a good light. Like, he made coaches look like buffoons. He made baseball players look like clowns because they're grown men playing a boy's game for a career. But it's so fun and so well written, and you can tell that he both loves baseball and kind of gives it side eye at the same time. Totally. But he just passed away.
Which is what you should do if you're a grown up. I mean, like, that's a very adult thing to do.
Right. I mean, if you play a sport for a career, I feel like you should both give it your absolute all, seek to be your best, and kind of look at it and go, how silly is this? I get to play a game for a living and get overpaid for it. This is amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But that one's, I mean, if you're a baseball fan or just like a sports fan who likes fun writing, that one, Ball 4 by Jim Bouton, is a great read.
I totally agree, man. Couldn't agree more. Love those Jim Bouton books. Piper, we have done what we always do on this program, in that we have wandered to and fro throughout some NBA things and throughout some Quentin Tarantino movies. This has been a blast, man. I'm happy to be back in the Happy Rant Sports saddle. Look for these more consistently. I think Pipe and I are revitalized. We're ready to do some NFL preview talk in a week or so. And until next time, Christoph Waltz.
The Happy Rant is brought to you by Resonate Recordings. If you go to resonaterecordings.com, you can see the full range of services they offer. So if you're considering starting a podcast, they are the ones we recommend going with. Again, go to resonaterecordings.com to see their prices, to connect with them and ask any questions, and to see what they can do to help you launch, edit, master, and improve your podcast. Again, go to resonaterecordings.com to see what they can do to help you launch and improve your podcast.